How we doing, Michael?
Just
Would like
one
to
second,
get.
David.
Thank you.
Okay, David, you're good to go there.
Thanks, Michael. Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our 2023 AGM. We really good turnout this evening. We really appreciate that. We know it's well, certainly in Dublin, it's a nice evening out there. So we thanks for giving that up. So we'll just um, yeah, Siobhan, we're good. We're good. We just in terms of sorry, quorum, Siobhan. I'm presuming. I do.
We are. Yep, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Um, okay, so on behalf of the board of directors, I'd like to welcome you all to the AGM for 2023. Just before we start, maybe I just get board and board members who are present and staff members just to raise their hands so that um well, I might just quickly, if I can run through who's there. Yeah. Um, I I have to make an apology up front. Camera is quite a distance from me, so I'm doing my best to see. So we with us we have Noel Caffrey, who's the vice chair of the board. I'm going to take him in the order I see them on the screen. Um, uh, Siobhan Quinn, who's a member of staff and our company secretary. Linda Sharkey, member of staff, from the board. Jason King, staff member. Rita Connell, who's our president. Uh, Julie. Uh, Jackie Moore from the board. Oh yeah, sorry, Ricky Bell, uh, uh, Martha Burton, uh, Mary McGrath, uh, Brian Keenan, Jane, training officer, Quillan McDade, Michael Duffy from the staff team. Okay, so just you can put your hands down now. Just wait. So just a couple of maybe housekeeping things first. I'd just like to um, acknowledge that I took our decision to put this AGM online. We last year we experimented with hybrid, and I suppose the feedback we got was that people who weren't in the room, it was quite difficult. So we decided it was better to go all, all present or all online. Um, I suppose, given that we're a national body, we have membership the length and breadth of the country, we felt that on balance it was better to go online. This allows it widespread participation. If you have any comments on that, or if you'd like, if you think that wasn't a good decision and you want to, you'd like to comment, we'd be delighted to receive your comments afterwards. I'm not going to, obviously, for this meeting, the decision is that we've gone online. But if you've got any reflections on that, for next year's AGM, we'd be.
Who's raised hand? Barbara does.
Barbara, you had a raised hand there. You're on mute, Barbara.
No, should be on mute.
Oh, sorry. Somebody on mute, Barbara. Hi, Barbara. Is somebody going to, I think somebody will unmute you.
Queen can't unmute her.
Okay. Yeah, no, my apologies. My hand was up by mistake. I've taken it down.
Sorry, Barbara. I didn't mean to call you out. Thanks for that. Okay, I suppose the other thing, just a couple of other housekeeping things. Just well, I suppose first of all, maybe to introduce the On my left, we've got Helen Lawless, who's our acting CEO. My name is David Pollard. I'm the chair of the board. And to my right is Dave Ayton, who's the chair of our Finance, Audit and Risk Committee. In general, if you want to ask a question, you'll be unmuted. And when you're asking a question, I'd ask that you make sure that your camera is on. I won't be able to deal with questions. I just can't see the chat from here. So if you want to ask a question, raise your hand. We'll unmute you. Okay. Yeah. So just in terms of voting, we just explained how that works. The voting on screen. When there's a vote, a pop-up will appear on your screen. You give, I think it's 30 seconds vote, and then the votes will be automatically counted. That's when we come to votes. So just before we start, we might just do a test vote. Everybody's happy with that. Julie, can you launch a test vote? So I'd ask everybody to put something in. You can vote yes, whatever you like, but just so we can count how many people. You just tick the box that you're selecting and then press submit. Okay. So, okay. Moving on then to the approval of the agenda. So you've seen the agenda, and we need to approve the agenda. So I think we will. We're on the last screen. We're on the.
Just confirming that we have a quorum.
Okay, can we just put the agenda, get the agenda up on the screen? We were having a technical problem here.
I don't think we have the agenda.
Okay. Okay, so it's the next one. Yeah, the next. Yes, there we go. So we just maybe if we could launch a poll, I think the agenda. So Julie, do you want to?
Sorry, David, is this for the standing orders?
For the agenda, no, for the agenda, Julie.
Sorry, David, I just don't see the agenda one here.
Okay. If anybody has any comments on the agenda, yeah, we could take those now. I don't see any hands raised.
Just bear with me 1 second, David.
We're having a little technical problem with the poll for the agenda. Apologies.
We don't have a poll first because
Okay, look, I think we can maybe we can take the agenda as adopted because I'm not seeing any comments to the contrary. Don't worry with the poll, Julie. I think we can just take the agenda as adopted. If we just move on to standing orders. Okay, so you should see the standing orders on your screen. So the proposer of a motion or an amendment to it may speak for 5 minutes, but not more than 5 minutes. A delegate speaking on another delegate speaking on the motion may speak for no more than 2 minutes. The proposer of the motion or the amendment speak to it for a second 2 minutes immediately before a vote is taken. So I think they're the main. So if we're happy with, then if there are any comments on standing orders, I'm happy to take them. Otherwise, I think we'll just launch a poll for standing orders, and we'll hope we do better this time. So if you're happy with adopt standing orders, or otherwise, please vote and submit. Okay. 97% approved and no response from 3%. So we'll take the standing orders as approved. The next item on the agenda is the chairperson's chairperson's report. So I'll deliver that, and then after that we'll stop and we'll take questions on, if there are any questions on any of the issues in the report. We're happy to take them at that stage. Well, good evening, everybody. Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Apologies. I'm jumping ahead of myself. Apologies. We need to approve the minutes of the 2022 AGM first. Apologies. So you should all have received a copy of the minutes from last year's AGM. Are there any comments, any concerns? No. I'm not seeing any hands raised. Julie, do we have a poll for this?
We do, David. I'll launch it now.
Thank you. Again, so just select your option and submit, please. Okay, so thank you. Yeah, that'd be easier.
Okay, so the result of the poll on minutes is 78% voting yes, 3% no, and 19% abstention. So they vote.
Thanks, Helen. Okay, so sorry, I nearly got ahead of myself there a moment ago. So it's my pleasure to present you with a summary of sort of the activities and outcomes of our organisation over the last year. Firstly, I'm just going to talk about a few broader organisational issues before getting into some specific operational areas of Hill Walking Club's approach. I'd like to start by reflecting on two events which took place in the latter part of the year. During the COVID years, our inability to bring together was, I believe, a real loss for our organisation. So it's absolutely fantastic to see events such as the Autumn Gathering and the Lynham Lecture, new levels of success in the post-COVID years. I suppose I'd particularly like to thank the for a very special Autumn Gathering in an absolutely stunning location with a really super range of activities. It was great to see such a strong turnout for the event. I know that additional walks were added at the last stage, and these two were quickly fully booked out. The Lynham Lecture from strength to strength, with over 400 people attending the event last December in Chartered Accountants House in Pearse Street in Dublin. It was very special to see the award going to Alvin Torrens, who is not only an outstanding but has been an absolute trailblazer in outdoor education, particularly focused on second level students. The steady year-on-year growth in our membership numbers continued through 2023, with our total membership exceeding 16,000 for the first time at the end of the year. Participation in our sport is strong across both gender and demographics. 53% of our membership is female. We really strong rates of participation across a very wide range of ages. This steady growth would not happen without the promotion work of our many clubs and breadth of the country, and we'd like to acknowledge and thank them for that. So moving on to hill walking and club support. Our hill walking committee is actively working to identify opportunities to develop hill walking to support our clubs and increase our relevance, our value to individual and club members. In response to the work that the committee has been doing, the board approved the creation of a second hill walking post, and the process of recruiting that has just started. We expect to see the impact of that as the year progresses. Louder, okay. I'll speak louder. I'll have to drink some water. For the past 3 years, Mountaineering Ireland has been running a club programming, offering free training to clubs in order to develop new walk leaders and to upscale those already leading. In 2023, one or more leaders from approximately 50% of our walking clubs availed of this training, which is really great to see. The program will be running again in 2024. For those who are getting started in hill walking, the hiking program is momentum by providing skills training to new and less experienced hikers in more than 30 locations around the country. Mountaineering Ireland has been hosting the Get Ireland walking program, which aims to promote a culture of walking throughout the country. The program is now in its 10th year and launched a new strategy in 2023. Yes.
We're getting a lot of messages about sound.
Okay, can I just ask anybody, can you just check that you're muted? There seems to be a bit of an issue with sound quality.
Come here.
If you, there's a few hands raised there. Is that in relation to sound quality? Hold on 1 second, we'll try and sort the problem.
David, Siobhan is going to come up to you with a
speaker.
set of headphones, so that should improve
Is
the
that any
sound.
better? If you think the sound has improved, great, thank you for that. There's 2 people with their hands up. I think it's okay.
No, my hand
Sorry,
was
the
just
technology
raised.
is
My hand was just raised
challenges.
because
I was just about to say, Mountaineering Ireland has been hosting the Get Ireland walking program for the last 10 years. This program aims to promote a culture of walking throughout the country. And it launched its new strategy in 2023. Also during 2023, Get Ireland walking partnered with the Hill Walking Committee and a Wicklow Club to develop the Summit Steps program, which sets out a structured approach to integration of new members and younger members into clubs. Mountaineering Ireland is also the national body for mountain training and is responsible for accreditation and validation of training courses and providers. Additionally, Mountaineering Ireland during 2023 directly provided 12 skills workshops and 2 international meetings. I'd like to turn now to access and conservation, and I suppose mention some of the key highlights from my perspective during 2023. 2023 was the first year of the 5-year National Outdoor Recreation Strategy. Mountaineering Ireland played a very active role in shaping and influencing the development of this strategy, which holds great potential for improvements to all outdoor sports. We will continue to monitor and assess its implementation and where necessary, call others out where they fail to deliver. We've been very actively involved in several projects around the country focused on improving the condition of paths and trails. One particular project I'd like to mention is the Croagh Patrick Path Project, where I believe Mountaineering Ireland's advocacy has been critical in achieving such a successful outcome. The Croagh Patrick pathway sets a very high benchmark for future projects. In May of last year, we organised a 2-day showcase of the Croagh Patrick path to promote this approach in other mountain areas. I should also mention that last year was the first year post-COVID that we got back to our mountain environment weekends. We hosted a very successful weekend in Donegal in June, and this was followed by regional environmental awareness days during the autumn. We've been lobbying for some time for revisions to the Occupiers Liability Act. We were very pleased to see the update of this act last July, which I believe brings significant improvements around liability for both farmers and for walkers alike. We are consistently involved in a long range of initiatives to develop increased access and to ensure continued access through both formal and informal channels, and by keeping strong relationships with key stakeholders such as farmers groups, landowners, and other partner organisations. We participated in the ploughing championship last September, which I think provided a really positive opportunity for us to network with some very important stakeholders. I'd like to move on now to high performance and climbing. During 2023, Mountaineering Ireland established a high performance working group whose aim was to identify the optimum next steps to take in supporting high performance Irish climbing. In addition to Mountaineering Ireland staff and volunteers, the working group included the high performance director from Canoe Ireland, John Mackey. It included the Zoe Spriggins, who's the BMC competitions program manager, and Emer McStrigan, a world champion ice climber and representative of the UIAA. So I think we had a very powerful group to advise us on the way forward. The working group agreed that establishing, resourcing and developing an effective high performance structure is now an essential step for Mountaineering Ireland. We believe though that high performance is not just important for those climbing, because we can see a trend in recent years where national governing bodies who avail of high performance funding also seem to perform much better in terms of their core grant allocation. So we believe this approach is a win for everybody. I'd just like to mention a few notable achievements on the competition side during the year. I'd like to mention Tom Nichols and Sean Henshin, who were both first in junior and youth A categories respectively in the Junior British League Climbing Championship in October. I'd like to mention Rihanna Conroy, who ranked in Europe top 10 junior female lead climbers, and Kaylin Lannan ranked in the top 20 youth A female lead climbing. And also was the first Irish competitor
to make semi-finals at the European Youth Climbing Championships in September. I'd also like to just mention a few of our locally organised events. The Irish Bouldering Championship and the Irish Lead Championships were a great success this year, with a high turnout of competitors from all across Ireland, England, Scotland and Wales. Thanks to Austin Malls for hosting and supporting this event. The new grassroots bouldering competitions run by Boulder World in Belfast and Mountaineering Ireland proved very popular this April and May. Thanks to Boulder World for hosting these events, and we look forward to the last round happening in mid-June. Finally, I'd just like to mention a few governance issues, because there's quite a lot has happened in that space. In January 2023, we appointed our first professional safeguarding officer on a part-time role, on a part-time basis. Previously, safeguarding had been done on a voluntary basis, but given the increasing complexity in this area, we felt this was no longer a sustainable or appropriate approach. I think it's fair to say that in the year that we've had a professional safeguarding officer, we've made very significant improvements, both in terms of our suite of policies and supports to clubs. In 2023, new auditors, OSK, were appointed. It's very important, I believe, that auditors change because they bring a whole different perspective when in looking at the accounts. The audit was very successful, I'm glad to report, and OSK were very complimentary of the engagement of Mountaineering Ireland in the audit process. In addition to our audit by OSK, we were also subject to a follow-up governance audit by COSI in October 2023. And this was to look at the implementation of the governance recommendations which had been made by COSI in an earlier report. Again, I'm glad to say that the outcome of this audit was extremely positive, and again, COSI were very complimentary of the progress that has been made. I'd also like to mention our committees, who I think play a vital role in supporting our organisation and in driving our objectives. There are currently 6 committees. There's a Finance, Audit and Risk Committee, as will be mentioned shortly, the Access and Conservation Committee, the Training Committee, the Hill Walking Committee, the Climate Committee, and we've just recently established a Governance Committee. Finally, just I'd like to reflect on a few staffing issues or changes during the year. As you're probably aware, we had some quite significant changes at the CEO level, both with extended sick leave last year, and also when our former chief executive left us in late November last year. The board is extremely grateful to Helen Lawless, who stood in as acting CEO on both occasions. I'm very happy to tell you that we've now appointed a new permanent CEO, Liam Feely, who will take the post at the end of June. And I think, Liam, you're actually online. If you are, you might just put your hand up. Yeah, hi, Liam. Do you want to just I'll just come back to you in a minute, maybe, Liam, if you want to just say just a quick hello. Just finally, I'd just like to finish by thanking our staff, our committee members, and my fellow board members for their outstanding dedication and commitment throughout 2023. Liam, do you want to just say a quick hello and just
Yeah, thank you, David.
You're on mute.
Yeah, I think I'm good now.
Yeah, we can hear you, Liam.
Lovely. I'll keep it very brief, David.
Maybe we'll come back, Liam. Sorry. Yeah, we'll come back. Okay. Okay. So I'd just like to open the floor. If there are any questions on our activities last year, or on I suppose specifically on the report, we'd be glad to do the best we can with them.
David,
The sun must be
David,
shining out there.
David, can you hear us?
Maybe in the meantime, can somebody see if they can get Liam unmuted? Yeah, I see a question there. Simon. Can somebody unmute Simon? Apologies, Simon, you're still muted. We're trying to unmute you.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Hi, Simon. Yeah, we can hear you.
That's grand.
Simon, can you try again?
Sorry, Simon, I'll try and get through to David. I think they can't hear us. If you just bear
Guys,
with
we
me,
seem to be having a bit of a technical
and I'll
problem here.
sort this out.
I can't hear Liam or Simon. We can't hear the question. Sorry, we're just getting technical support here.
You're breaking up on me.
Apologies, folks. We're just trying to sort this. Stealing, can you say something? See if we can hear you.
Yeah, David, can you hear us now?
No.
Okay, guys, we'll try and get this sorted. Apologies.
I think we might have a fix. Simon, you want to go try again?
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Excellent.
No, I'm sure we're all delighted to hear that the High Performance Committee is doing well.
Oh, Simon, the sound is dreadful. Sorry, Simon, we'll come back to you in a minute. I'm going to take Liam and I'll come back to you, Simon, if that's safe. Liam, will you try and see if it's...
Hi,
You want to
David.
just introduce yourself? Perfect. Okay, we can hear you.
Yeah, hello everyone. Liam Feely is my name. I'll keep it very brief because I know we have a lot to go through. I just want to thank everyone for putting their trust in me. I'm very excited for taking up the role and looking forward to getting stuck in at the end of June. And I suppose we were remiss of me not to thank Helen for all the hard work she's done and keeping the ship sailing to a very high level. And I'm looking forward to getting to meet as many people in person over the next year. And just thank you. And yeah, we'll crack on. Thanks, David.
Thanks, Liam. Okay, Simon, do you want to try again?
Okay. So you mentioned the development of the High Performance Committee. You mentioned successes in the climbing area. And I'm sure we need to be generous and say that this is welcomed by everybody. Nevertheless, 85% of the members are hill walkers. Would you like to point to any successes last year in hill walking?
I think, Simon, the uptake on the club leadership program is notable in that we had more than or approximately 50% of our hill walking clubs engaged with that program last year. We delivered over 90 training days in total. We also expanded our Happy Hiking Hill Skill series last year and delivered 30 training days. Some of those participants were Mountaineering Ireland members, but most were not. So we were reaching out much wider. Towards the end of the year, we engaged with a videographer to start looking at developing a video series, again, to reach non-affiliated, non-followers, I suppose, within the expanding hill walking community. We've continued to ensure balance within the Irish Mountain Law with content that appeals to hill walkers and climbers. I think one of the biggest successes we had in the area of hill walking last year was our hugely successful autumn gathering, our best attended gathering ever. David has already mentioned the fact that we had to put on extra walks, and many people experienced the beautiful Sneem area, the Dunkerran Mountains, for the first time.
I think for me, one of the big successes is the rate of participation in hill walking. I think that's been just to see the growth over recent years has been, and there's lots of data to back this up. I think the Summit Steps program that was piloted last year was a real success, a real, how to bring new people into the sport of hill walking, and we plan to roll that out more widely.
I think the continued high level of engagement with our mountain training schemes is also notable. And the most popular scheme is the Mountain Skills Programme, with well over 1,000 registrants last year. And indeed, if we look across all of our mountain training schemes, 79% of all registrants out of 1,381, 79% were participating in walking schemes. So that gives you some sense of the extent to which we are supporting skill development amongst hill walkers.
Okay, are there any other questions you would like to raise?
David, there are a number of David, Ian Lawler has his hand raised there.
Ian, yeah. Hi, Ian. Yeah.
So David, just to respond to there's a query on the chat with respect to Rob Hunter's departure as the team coach. So that's this year rather than last year, but the board, just wanted to point out that the board really did appreciate his service as the RSU team coach and did indeed send a letter to him in that regard, thanking him for his service over those years. But just to respond to that question in the query in the chat, as I said, it's a 2024 issue as opposed to a 2023 one, but it would be remiss to ignore it.
Thanks, Ian. Yeah, Brian. Brian, yeah, go again.
Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to respond as well to contributions to hill walking. I think you were cutting out quite a bit, David, when you were recapping on some of the accomplishments on the access side and on the national representation around occupiers' liability, etc. I do think there's a huge amount of work that has gone on the access side to the benefit of hill walkers, and I just would call that out. We don't necessarily put it under the category of hill walking, but it is very much in support of hill walking. Routes, access, representation, influencing legislation, influencing the national outdoor recreation strategy. There's a huge ongoing body of work behind the scenes to keep our access open and to improve it and to work with other stakeholders on access. So I would just call that out as an important contribution to hill walking.
Thanks, Brian. Okay. I don't see any other hands, so I'm going to move on if that's okay. Okay, so the next item on our agenda is the election to full membership of aspiring clubs, and there's one club in that category this year, which is Corb Ramblers. So I think we just can we just have a poll on that, please? I just think I know there are we've had a huge number of new clubs over the last year, just maybe still at aspiring status, but it's great to see that these clubs coming through. So, Julie, can we launch a poll?
Yeah, that's there, David.
Thanks, Julie. Let us know, Julie, when that's in.
Okay, we have the result of that poll. So we have 89% of delegates supporting the Car Ramblers going to full membership, and no no's and 11% abstention. So the vote's passed.
Excellent. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the company secretary's report. Siobhan, can I ask you to read that, please?
Yeah, thanks, David. So the last AGM was held on May 23rd, 2023. It was a hybrid meeting hosted at Mountaineering Ireland's head office, Irish Sport HQ, National Sports Campus, Blanchardstown, and via Zoom. There were 7 meetings of the board of Mountaineering Ireland in 2023. Mountaineering Ireland declared full compliance with the Sport Ireland Governance Code of Sport. All legal and procedural requirements have been followed, including reporting and submissions to the company's registration office, the CRO. Mountaineering Ireland is a company limited by guarantee and is a sporting organisation supported by both Sport Ireland and Sport Northern Ireland. All the directors are extremely focused and clear about their duties to Mountaineering Ireland. The board of directors act at all times in the best interest and to the best of their capability with regard to Mountaineering Ireland organisation, its members and other stakeholders.
Are there any questions on that? We don't formally vote on the it's a report, so it's not for approval, but it's for information. Okay.
That's just the text of the company secretary's report. Sorry for not moving the slide forward sooner. That is on our website as well. So in the interest of expediency, we'll move ahead to the finance section if there are no questions on the company secretary's report.
Okay, so I've asked Dave Ayton, the chair of our Finance and Audit and Risk Committee, to present the financial statements for 2023.
Thanks, David. Good evening. So yeah, just a way of overview. During the last year, Mountaineering Ireland has, as it says, continuing to operate appropriate financial processes, and with the inclusion of, we've got our Finance Audit and Risk Committee, just keeping an eye on the financial operations. We've met the reporting requirements of the key funders, which is obviously key.
Dave, apologies. The sound isn't great. If we could move the computer closer to you, or if you could speak up, please.
Yep, okay, we're just moving the computer now.
Here's my personal space. Yeah, so just to recap, so on the main points, basically the FAR committee's oversight of the financial operations and risk, and that's always been referred back to the board for consideration before any decisions. We're meeting the financial reporting requirements of the key funders. Budgets are in place for programs. Again, you know, we'd work the FAR would work on these and put forward suggestions for board approval, and advise the board on revenue and cost income streams. Again, other than ensuring auditory compliance and financial oversight, just the FAR's main purpose, other than that, is to advise the board on concerns, risks, or opportunities as they present. A huge thank you to the FAR committee members for volunteering their time and their expertise, and likewise the board members and our accountants, IFT, and our auditors, OSK. So very top level overview, 23 to 22 comparison, income showing the increase there, just showing 1.6 million, up on the previous year. The expenditure has increased beyond our income growth, resulting in a deficit for the year, as presented in the formal accounts, which are available online, and were produced by our auditors. So when it comes to diving into some of the detail, the core funding was up on previous years. There's an 18k amount there showing as unspent for the year in question, which is deferred due to be spent, largely spent already this year. Sport Ireland and Healthy Ireland funding for Get Ireland Walking at 285,500. Women in Sport 45,000 and Home Moves at 18. Again, these figures, when presented in the accounts format, will show us spending slightly less than that. The time frames involved in some of these grant incomes continue into this year. Women in Sport being a good example of that. That funding is intended to be catering for women in sport until June of this year, I think. COVID-19 grant scheme of 145,000 spread between Get Climbing, IT improvements, club leadership schemes, and the COVID recovery grant. And the Sport Ireland funding of £53,000, again, ring fence was received for the 23-24 period, but again, solely for the use of engagement with youth and providing access to them for climbing and walking activities. The next slide is the representation of the last 2 pages of the official accounts as they present on the website. So again, just showing the 23 figures for income and expenditure, and that's largely where we know the questions to arise. So rather than reading through this line by line, I think now is the appropriate time to ask for any raised hands with a view to questions on transparency or anomalies, or any questions people might have on last year's finances. So, Michael Perry.
Can you hear me there?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay. Unfortunately, from my pastime over my life was an accountant as well, so a couple of queries, if you don't mind.
We won't hold that against you, Michael.
I've gone through the detailed income and expenditure. A couple of numbers jump out at me. For instance, the wages and salaries have gone up by 115,000 in 1 year. And their headcount wise, we only seem to be looking at one person. And in fact, the CEO has gone down year on year. So it just looks like a very large increase. You know, you're talking about nearly 25% increase in 1 year on wages and salaries. I might as well throw them all at you since I'm at, and then you can come rather than go one by one. The professional fees is another one that jumps out at me, 97 versus 75, so 22,000. Again, quite a large increase, if you like, percentage year on year. You know, there are certain, there was one other one. I mean, the grants, as you say, are very, not so much hit and miss, but there's a lot of timing involved in grants, and I understand that they come in different times of the year, etc., etc. But I mean, I am conscious the website and IT, I suppose it's a growing thing, but again, we're still looking at 33% increase in IT costs year on year. This is all said kind of in conjunction with the motion that's going forward to increase the subscriptions by €3 a person. So it's like saying year on year, we've had a turnaround of 100,000 between again 1 year and a loss this year, 100,000. I would like to think or hear from the committee what you are doing to see about not so much cutting costs, but being savvy, negotiating prices, whatever like that. Is there anything happening on that in that sense? You know, I know from being on various committees myself, sometimes if you go to suppliers and things can be negotiated, you know. So I leave it at that. Thank you.
Yeah. You pick one. So we have salaries, clearly the increase in salaries, we've got the professional fees, and then
IT costs.
Yeah, that's if we say Golden as a not so much an ongoing rise, that's a one-off event of investment in the anchor piece on the new website. But and then I suppose finally just more a query regarding your own confidence on the board and the organisation's efforts towards cost management and just investigating more frugal ways to operate. So salaries.
Well, I think the biggest component of the salary increase, and there is an increase there. The Mountaineering Ireland staff salaries had remained static for about 10 years. We at the end of 2022, there was a review where we compared across other organisations. So there was a 15% increase, an overall 15% increase. In addition to that, there was an additional staff member in 22, two additional staff members. And I think probably as well, what's in there as well is when we had the initial plan with the safeguarding officer was 1 day a week. When she came in and we realized the level of work that had to be done, the board approved additional expenditure in that area. So the biggest component of the salary increase was an increase in wages, but that was on the back of salaries had remained static for about 10 years. So we needed to do something about it. The professional fees, again, that's relatively straightforward. There were in a typical year, I think our professional fees coming in around the 50K mark, and they were about 45K above that, north of that last year. There were a couple of things in that. 17K of that came from in 2022. There was a ring fence grant from Sport Ireland to do some staff development culture survey work. 17K of that was spent in 23. So the grant was received. It was ring fenced for that specific work. So 17 of that 79 is that. There was, in addition to that, when we decided on foot of the results of that work that to commission additional staff development work. So there was another, I think, 22K in that. There was also a figure of 8K on we changed our accounting package in 23, and there was 8K, I think, in additional support fees on that. They're once-off charges, and our expectation is that what we budgeted for this year is a much lower figure. So of that, So as I say, the typical, the kind of baseline figure for our professional fees include things like our bookkeeping, we outsource our bookkeeping. That's that's year on year. So that would have been in the prior year also. It's about 38K. And then legal services, some HR support. That's what our professional fees are typically made up of. They would typically come in around 50K. They were exceptional in 23, but they were essentially once-off costs. Does that answer the question, Michael?
I need to unmute myself there. Can you hear me now again?
Yeah, perfectly. Yeah.
No, look, I've been involved in the game long enough. I know myself, and it's a rising cost. Everybody knows that. Can I ask, just as I hear what you're saying there about these one-off costs. So typically that should mean that let's say 2024 should see a reduction in a number of those figures, if you like, obviously certain things go up. Is it possible to give out what just out of interest, what the budget for 2024 is going to be for expenditure and income?
It is possible. I don't know if we have it.
Sorry about that.
We'll scramble here, try and get it.
Yeah, the professional fees will fall in line with previous year's standards, outgoings, and albeit scaled at a much more normal level. So you can
I'm actually wondering in terms of the whole overall, the bottom line, like the 1.6 million this year. What is that liable to be reduced next year, budget-wise, like?
I mean, obviously, wages and salaries are not going to go back.
I know. That's why I'm saying let's look at the whole lot.
Yeah, it's the budget's obviously for the budget with showing surplus, not deficit. And I suppose the takeaway from the year in question, we're looking at this AGM, is that the budget for that year was adhered to, barring the unplanned expenses that fell out of budget and tipped us over the deficit. But those expenses, when the situations were in development, the board were aware of them and discussed the options on the table, and incurred those costs, and with the view that they were necessary to progress. So for the year ahead, Helen and I are going to try and get the really, I suppose at this point of view, the budget for the current year is mostly or solely just available for staff having been approved by the board. So but it is there, and it's not a.
Well, let me put it this way: is it forecasted to at least, if you like, break even or be positive?
Yeah, it is definitely. And interestingly, Helen had some information ready. Deficit expenditure isn't unknown, but the last one was in 2018, prior to this, and that was the end of a number of years where running out of deficit wasn't uncommon. But thankfully, since then we've been operating that surplus. So I think I know for a fact that this year's budget plans to be in that surplus position again.
Okay.
Regarding the costing, I think a lot of the investments, so coming out of COVID, there were, funds available for innovation, for technology, COVID resilience. So I think as an organization, work's being done towards optimizing some of their processes, maybe freeing up staff workload from administrative tasks that maybe investment in IT or customer engagement could allow. And again, with a view to making every staff hour more applicable to providing member services or the member experience. So, as part of that, I suppose, looking at costs, whether it's auditors, suppliers of services, that is a priority, Michael.
Good. Good to know.
Thanks, Michael. Okay, Patricia?
I won't bore you anymore. Go on.
Not at all, Michael.
Patricia, you're next.
Hi, can you hear me there? Hi.
There.
Thanks. I'm just from Cumanchu, Cushcaraba and Galway here. There was a couple of comments that came in to us prior to the AGM just from our members about the mountain log, the Irish mountain log, and it might be the best time to bring it up just in relation to the costs. One of the comments was a question, if you're looking at circulating that electronically to save costs and also from an environmental point of view, and also would there be a facility if that's not possible to only circulate maybe just one per household, because there's probably a lot of couples maybe or families involved as members.
Thanks, Patricia. Yeah, I think there's a couple of I suppose the increasing cost in the mountain log is down primarily to distribution. It's the cost of postage, and also because our membership has increased, the number of people who are posting it too has increased. So that's where the increases come from. There is a plan. We are working on a plan to give people the option of receiving it digitally. Now, we did survey our members last year, and we asked them if they wanted paper or digital. We had a very good response to that survey, and we had a very strong. We got the answer very strongly that most people value the paper version. So it's not our intention to go fully digital, because that's not. We asked the members what they want, and they told us very clearly. But we are planning to give people the option of receiving it digitally. Some people will prefer that. I mean, the actual cost of the Mountain Log per, if you take the cost per member per issue, I think it's about €2.07. Then that includes everything. So the cost per issue is not particularly large, but it's what's happened is there's obviously postage costs have increased and the number of sendings have increased. So that's. But yes, it is planned to. Some of it is tied into our digital membership card, because we'll have an enhanced user portal and people will have the option at that point of selecting digital only if that's their preference. But I would save some. There will be some cost saving there.
And I just think for Patricia's peace of mind, those exact questions have been raised by board members and also been relayed by other members through their clubs. And as an organisation, I know Helen and others have been talking with other mountaineering councils, Scotland, for example, and they've got different models. Some councils have gone for a split format where one issue is print, the next one may be digital. But I think, Dave's survey that Mountaineering Ireland put out last year would indicate that we'll have to go for a kind of hybrid issue. But it's moving there. It's a bit of a work in progress.
Sorry, just on the one, can I just come back, Patricia, just on the one per household? That is our intention, that only one goes to household. Helen, do you want to take that one?
That option is there for any household, Patricia, to log into our website and change their settings so that they receive just one issue.
I can tell you in my household we just received one, and we're 2 members. But it's to some extent we're dependent on club administrators to do that for us. When we have the digital membership card, people will have more control over their own settings. Thanks, Elena, I think it is. Apologies, the computer is at a distance that I can't read it without my glasses, and it's too far that I can read it with my glasses. So if I'm getting your name wrong, apologies.
No worries. Thanks for letting me in. I have 2 questions in here. So one of them is related to the access and conservation. I cannot, looking at the full amount in here, the access and conservation is very small in there. I'm just asking, are there any plans, to look into this area more and invest more in this year, or what exactly was invested last year? And the second is in terms of the training, what percentage of that amount went to individual members, and how was that? How were they supported to the training?
Okay, thanks. I'll ask Helen to do the access and conservation one.
Thanks very much for your comments, Elena. A couple of the access and conservation expenditure last year was increased on 2022. David mentioned that we got back to hosting a mountain environment weekend, which took place in Glenveigh and at Garton. The other key event David also referred to was the showcase event at Croagh Patrick. And in addition to bringing stakeholders from across the country to that event, we also supported the Croagh Patrick Path team with some training. And we did manage to host a series of one-day environmental awareness events as well. We try and ensure there's regular access and conservation content on our social media and in the Mountain Log as well. But yes, we do want to invest more in this area.
one of the areas we're particularly keen to do more on is in response to climate change. Mountaineers, probably above others in society, can see the impacts of climate change on the mountains here in Ireland, but particularly if we're privileged enough to have visited places like the Alps. We set up a climate response working group, but because of other commitments over the last year, as Access and Conservation Officer, unfortunately, I haven't been in a position to lead on that, but we are certainly keen to do so. One of the other initiatives that we're keen to undertake, perhaps in the latter part of this year and certainly early next year, is the development of further walking with wildlife guides and resources to, I suppose, help improve people's understanding of the special places in which we do our activities and how we can ensure that our impact there is positive by avoiding disturbance of wildlife and minimizing damage to habitats. You asked about the proportion of training that's undertaken by individual members vis-a-vis club members. Our training officer, Jane Carney, might have some figures available on that. But just in terms of breakdown, more than 80% of Mountaineering Ireland members are affiliated to the organisation through clubs, and just over 80%. So the majority of our investment in support of training and the majority of participants in training would be coming from a club background.
Can I just add to Helen's words there by way of oversight, which might be useful for anyone looking at these accounts, maybe with less experience. But Elena, for example, probably MI's biggest investment, Mountaineering Ireland's largest investment into access and conservation, actually is from the wages and salaries nominal on the expenditure thing. So like the provision of a dedicated staff member to champion the cause of access and conservation actually dwarfs the line entry there for access, which is one of the issues that I think people have, you know, when you take a look at your particular passion point on the expenditure and you're querying why isn't more being spent on what I care about. It is by way of salaries, and similarly, like the investment in training people, and some money from women in sports would be directed towards the provision of subsidized training for aspirant women, guides, coaches, and so on. Equally with EDI, you know, Ricky's been doing some incredible work with Paul Keller regards, you know, access for all training. And again, I think that's in the spirit of your question, but it might not present as clearly on the accounts. I hope that adds something to your answer.
Is that Simon? I think you're next. No, Simon.
I have to unmute. Can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear. Yeah.
Very good. Okay, so
no, we've lost you again.
You've lost me. Oh dear.
That's better.
I'm supposed to be on. No.
I can hear you now.
You can hear me now.
Yeah.
Okay, so last year we discussed the accounts that appear at the end of the document, and we discussed as an example, we discussed the figure that was given for hill walking expenditure for 2022, which was given as €854. All right. And I think we all agreed Mountaineering Ireland is spending an awful lot more than €854 on hill walking. So essentially, the point was that the figure didn't seem to be connected to roughly speaking, what Mountaineering Ireland is spending for this activity, and by implication, was it spending for other activities? And I think Elena sort of queried just that point in relation to access and conservation. So what you did in the most recent accounts is you changed that 854 to 35,337 for 2002. All right. Now, I'm not sure it's great practice to change figures for previous years, but I whatever about that, there's no explanation as to what that figure represents. So the figure for, moving to 2023, the figure you've given for hill walking as another example is 32,557. Once again, the figure's not explained. Surely an organization with an income of 1.5 million, where 85% of the members are hill walkers.
Sorry, Simon, can you look at your computer when you're talking? You're coming and going. It's really hard to hear you.
I'll try improving it. Is that any better?
Yeah.
Okay,
Maybe just
I'll
keep
just
still.
repeat what I said. Surely an organization with an income of 1.5 million, where 85% of the members are hill walkers, would be spending more than 32,000 on hill walking. As you pointed out in the answer to my first question, in fact, there was lots of activities that hill walking was doing. You listed them when I asked. Helen and yourself listed them. There's lots of activities. So are these the activities whose costs you are capturing in this figure of 32,000? What exactly are the figures from? So I just go on a bit about that.
Okay, I think we probably have the question, Simon. I think we might just let's try and answer it.
Okay,
yeah.
but I do have a few more points now. Okay.
Okay. Simon, you're gone on mute.
I'm back again now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, but just try and stop moving around.
Okay, stop moving around. Okay. Well, look. According to the figures that you have in the figures that you have in the management accounts, climbing is getting about 89,000. Once again, there's no explanation. Is that the figure? Is that the gross figure before the income from climbing is deducted? So then my other question would be, that's a huge figure. Let us suppose that you deduct the income from climbing from the figure that people is being said to be spent on it, and you get about 70 grand. Surely hill walking isn't getting 32,000 and climbing is getting 70 grand. The figures don't indicate what the money is actually being spent on. And there's no notes, there's no explanation of any of this. Were hill walking to be proportionately paid for at the same rate as climbing, given the approximate ratio of the numbers of people involved, you'd be talking about 500,000. So I just think that the management accounts aren't showing us what are actually the expenses or the actual, what is the effort that's being put into the sort of things that you listed as achievements for 2023, the items that would appear in the strategic plan. How is how are the figures? Where are they coming from?
Simon, you repeat. I'm going to have to just take the question, as I think we're running out of time.
Sorry, I can't hear you. What was that?
Okay, I think we have the question, Simon. We'll try and answer it. I mean, just without getting overly technical, these are statutory accounts. They're not management accounts. They're presented in a format that's required under company law and under the reporting standards. They're reported by nominal. They're not reported by activity. That's and as you quite rightly point out, the figures you're referring for hill walking and climbing are direct expenditure on of particular programs. They don't take into account the staffing. They don't take into account access and conservation. They don't take into account the mountain log. They don't take into account insurance. All of which are proportionately spent on hill walkers. The other point I'd make is that not everybody is a hill walker or a climber. There's lots of overlap between the two. So I think, look, I think it's not correct to look at those figures and say that's the spend on hill walking. That's not the spend on hill walking. The spend on hill walking includes the staff time, it includes the work on access and conservation, it includes the work on the club support work, the training. All of that is all is supports hill walking. So I think you want to.
Yeah. To be honest, I think Simon knows the answer, and the question is like the request for a summary or a notes page to explain it in simple terms. And I think David's point is true. The FRS 102, the constraints for the presentation based on nominal and expense spend, that binds how these accounts present. But trying to translate them into the way that's palatable for our members is a different thing. But like on some of the data, 85% from the recent survey of members are predominantly hill walkers. And David's point is true. There will be an overlap with that. Some of those will partake in climbing, and some of the 15% of climbers will partake in hill walking. There are some other nuanced differences too. I mean, when in support of hill walking events and provision, a lot of the MI staff are that physical support and do a lot of that work. When it comes to the climbing events, quite often that's specialist skill or provision that's brought into the organization or brought in and paid for that event. So it won't appear in the wages and salaries. And the only nominal it's appropriate to put that expense down to is the climbing expense. So again, the intent or the requirement for these accounts that are presented is a statutory one. It's a compliance issue, and it's to I suppose it's presented in full transparency to the membership to show that nothing is hidden and these questions are welcome, but to understand it in detail is a body of work. Now, we did make actually, me personally, I agree with the intent and the request, and I'd actually love to provide that note summary of the real spend. We could be very lazy and apply an 85% to our total expenditure and say, well, that's how much you spent on hill walking, because in very close to real terms, it probably is. But the year we're coming out of, it's been quite a turbulent year for MI staff, and between staff illness and absence and many other reasons, I think the staff have been handling workloads incredibly well, and to do this in typical MI staff's form meticulously well and present not only a detailed but an accurate explanation of where the money's being spent with a view to hill walking provision and support, it just fell off the list, Simon. I'd love to have been able to provide it through the far, but and I think it would eliminate these kind of discussions and further assure the membership that money's being spent on what they care about.
But maybe just to add one thing to that, with the digital membership cards, we expect to have much better information on what activities people are actually involved in, and that will help us to do that. But it's not simple, Simon. It's there are because you've got that overlap, because access and conservation works for both hill walking and climbing. The mountain log goes to hill walkers and climbers. It's not terribly simple to disaggregate in And certainly we couldn't present the accounts as net of income. I mean, we have to show income and expenditure separately. So look, I hope that answers your question, but it is the intention. It is something we are conscious of the need to try to find a way to do this. We have done some work on it. It's not simple. We haven't got there yet, but we do accept the need to do it. Lauren, you've been waiting for a while.
Yeah, just a quick one. Are there any funding opportunities through the Irish Olympic Council or the Irish Olympic funding?
I'd say there are opportunities, and there are pots of money available for. Yeah, well, to be honest, the body of work that took place regards the high performance pathway for MI, it focuses on that kind of area, Lauren.
Okay.
And the issue is high performance funding doesn't kick in until you meet certain criteria by Sports Ireland High Performance. Now they do have some money which is to facilitate organisations working towards that. But I have to say, having worked with David and Helen and the whole MI staff, I think Helen's work and Sport Ireland's view of Mountaineering Ireland, where we're going, is positive, extremely positive at the minute.
Okay.
And it's something that's very much on the board's radar.
Perfect. Thank you.
We have had some engagement, but we haven't, I guess, had a successful outcome yet. But it is certainly very much on our radar.
Jane might want to come back.
Sorry, Jane, do you want to come in there?
There was a question on training earlier about the breakdown between clubs and individuals. Do you have an answer on that, Jane?
Yeah, if you could ask me the question again, it was a while back and I've been just looking for something else. But yeah, I can answer the question then.
I think it was Elena's question about the breakdown between club members and individual members in relation to grant aids to support training.
And also the training expense value of circa
Yeah,
45k. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I didn't hear the bit about it, the breakdown between club and individual, but it was more the costs there. So again, similar to what Dave and David have been saying about how the money has kind of come and go with training. We obviously have registration, so we actually make an income, which is why it's quite a high figure there in the income side of things. But also we run meets where people are charged. We try to run those at cost as best we can. So the Alpine meet, the winter meet as well. So people will pay for it much as they would do for a gathering. But then contrast that with the expenditure on the other side, we have to pay the guides to work on those meets. So there's a high cost of expenditure there, but lots of that is to cover the cost of guides, which we take funds in. So we generate an income overall of about 45k within training. We also pay for provider training courses. We also take fees from providers. So there's a kind of a balance back and forth with those fees. And we also give grants. We have a budget of 4k for grants for clubs and members. So they apply and they can be awarded 125 or 250, that kind of thing. So, and just, does that help answer, Elena, the question that you were asking? It's not that I have 45,000 to spend on training, is where I'm coming from. It's what goes out, it's what I spend, but it's against what I bring in. That makes sense. So we actually make money on training for the registrations. Yeah, there you go.
Thanks, Jen. I think that. Sorry, who will ask that question? Elena.
Elena's just.
Sorry, Elena. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, the question is, how do you support, the individual members during the training progressions and so on? There are grants there for clubs, and clubs, they came on board or something like this, but not all the individuals, want to join a club, and joining a club maybe is not the solution. So are there any plans in there, how they are fitting within that big picture over there?
Okay, so that raises something really interesting, Elena. There are grants for individuals. The grants that we have in training are individual and club grants. So that's down on us that we've not maybe promoted that strongly enough that individuals are aware that it's not just for clubs. So the same grants are there of 125. Generally, when an individual is applying for a grant as opposed to a group of individuals, we would give the smaller amount because the impact for one person delivering further training to their peers is going to be lower than a group of people delivering a training course. So with that budget, it's more efficient if we can get 6 people, say, through a mountain skills training than 1 person through a mountain skills training. That makes sense. So the same funding is there. The other component is the Women in Sport program. So pretty much all of that funding has gone to individuals, either for higher awards, for mentoring, to get them towards their assessments for the higher awards, or providership to become, to have more female representation in our list of trainers. So more women are more likely to follow in their footsteps and take up training. So does that answer your question, Alina? Or have you?
Yeah, I think in the interest of time, probably. Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. Are there any other?
Sorry, David, you're on mute there. If you could just unmute yourself.
Okay. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So anybody, Michael, I'll come back to you in a moment. Is there anybody else who we're coming towards the end of our time for this? So if there's anybody else who's a question, please raise your hand. Remind you again, I can't see the chat. So there's no point in putting a question in the chat. I can't see it. So if you have a question, please raise your hand. Michael. I think you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm on mute now. Listen, thanks for all those explanations. Just getting back to Simon's query, etc. You may or may not have this internally, but maybe it's a suggestion for going forward. It's not uncommon for organizations to take the likes of, it doesn't matter what the expenditure is, and allocate it over departments, such as be it climbing, hill walking, etc. So you could say like 90,000 for climbing, maybe 40% of that is belong to hill walking. So in a sense, it's like a management accounts. What's the possibilities of putting something like that together for next year, not for this year? Like you may have it internally yourselves already. So where you have one person covering 2 jobs, you just allocate a cost across the different functions. It's only a suggestion for going forward.
Thanks, Michael. No, that's a very good suggestion. And we had intended to try to do that this year. We just, as Dave has explained, just with like a staff pressures this year and the amount of change we've had, we didn't get there. It's not simple, but we will certainly try. We will certainly try to do it. It would be separate to the statutory accounts. Obviously, you're right, as you'd be well aware. I don't see any other hands. Okay. I'm assuming therefore there are no more questions. I mean, I'm quite happy to give more time to questions. As I say, I cannot see the chat. So if there is something in the chat, who has a question, please raise your hand now or okay. Fine. Okay, I don't see any questions. So what we're going to do now is we're going to ask you to adopt the accounts. And the accounts obviously have been audited by OSK. They're the auditors that were appointed by the AGM last year. But we're going to launch a poll and ask you to approve the adoption of the accounts. Julia,
David, is that the adoption of the financial statements?
Yeah, sorry, but that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, sure. That's launched. You should have the results there now, David.
Yes, thanks, Julie. So the outcome of the vote on financial statements, 84% voted to adopt the financial statements, 3% said no, and 13% abstained.
Okay. So the next item then, I think, on our agenda is the appointment of auditors for 2024. OSK, we're as you know, we're appointed for the first time. They were appointed. We appointed them last year for the first time, and we would propose to continue with OSK this year. So any questions on that? Happy to take them. I would just actually, we do have I just maybe just read an email from OSK because they're not actually present. This is from Deirdre at OSK. I hope, hi Helen, I hope this email finds you well. Our normal practice is not to attend AGMs unless there are issues with audit. In the case of Mountaineering Ireland, we've issued a clean audit report, so we will not be attending the AGM. I hope the AGM went smoothly. Yours kind regards, Deirdre. Just to background. Okay, can we go to launch the poll there?
Let's launch now, David. Should have the results now.
Yes, thanks, Julie. So we have 92% of responses in support of reappointing OSK, 1% no, and 7% abstention. So that's clearly passed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item on our agenda is a statement regarding safeguarding and anti-doping, and these have to be. There's no vote on this, but it's essentially we're obliged to read them out to you.
Okay, so Mountaineering Ireland's safeguarding policy, the Child Safeguarding Framework, which, by the way, is available on our website. There's a link to it at the top of our homepage. It complements the Northern Ireland Safeguarding Guidance, Keeping Children Safe, Our Duty to Care, and also Sport Ireland's Safeguarding Guidance for Children and Young People in Sport. And Mountaineering Ireland affiliated clubs with youth members and award holders working or volunteering with children, young people, or vulnerable adults must commit to our values, principles, and best practice policies and procedures in order to provide a safe, fun, and enjoyable environment. So we're obliged to share that statement with you. We ask that it's noted. And if you do have any questions with regard to safeguarding, our safeguarding officer, Catherine Hibbett, is available to support all our clubs and members with queries in that area. And Catherine can be contacted at safeguarding@mountaineering.ie, or if you wish to speak with her through the office.
So, is there anybody? Is there any comments on that? We'd be happy to take them now. If not, I propose we go on to the anti-doping statement, which are also required to share.
David, can I just jump in? There's a question there asking if the vote percentages are the percentage of votes cast or the percentage of members present. And I think we can clarify and say that that's the percentage of votes cast. But maybe going forward, we could say the percentage of and how many people voted. That was
we have that figure because we get three things. We get the yeses, the no, the yeses and the noes, and the no opinions.
Abstentions. But people have the option to abstain. So what we're looking at is the percentage of votes cast. We have a number of people on the meeting tonight who are not voting because they're board members who may not be delegates, or staff members who are not delegates, so they're not voting. So it's a percentage based on the votes cast. And I think the abstention is an individual choice in responding to the vote. Okay, so it says it goes on to the laptop behind. All right, so our anti-doping statements, similar to the safeguarding statements, we're obliged to share these with the attendants at the AGM, and they're not voted on, but I suppose our support for the statements is noted. So Mountaineering Ireland fully subscribes to the World Anti-Doping Agency, the WADA procedures, and promotes a drug-free sport. Mountaineering Ireland references anti-doping in the rules of all national level climbing competitions. Mountaineering Ireland provides anti-doping education for members of the youth climbing team and other climbers who compete at international competitions. And Mountaineering Ireland includes anti-doping education as part of relevant coach education programs. Just further, in relation to anti-doping, we've had 2 changes of anti-doping officer in the 23 and early 24 year. So I would like to acknowledge Neil Kavanagh, who was our anti-doping officer in the early part of 2023. Rob Hunter, who was our national coach, and Ian Lawler referred to him earlier. Rob stepped in as anti-doping officer until earlier this year, and we have a new anti-doping officer, Anya McGuinness, who is now in the role, has undergone training, and we will be doing further anti-doping awareness at climbing competitions and events. So again, unless there are any questions, there's no vote on this. The statements are noted by the meeting.
Okay. In the interest of time, unless there's anybody immediately, okay. So we're on to the motion number 1, which is, I don't maybe Dave will have that to you.
Yeah. I don't know. Nice to so this is a motion proposed by the board with a view to the annual subscription payable by club members. Again, this is for the membership year beginning the 1st of November. So the proposal is for club members, adult club members aged over 26, for the fee to increase to €38. Club members under 26, 24 with additional club discounts for family members within a club, and that would just look like additional members within the same club under the age of 26. It would be €8.50. If we can just on to the next slide.
Sorry, the explanation.
Thank you. It's a €3 increase, and it was last increased in 2019. As I mean, what was mentioned in the discussion about the financial statements, increased operating expenses, not least insurance, salaries, production and distribution of the mountain log, among others, but also with a view to keeping MI in a position where it can avail of opportunities to invest in member interests and continue to provide for our membership. The subscription rate for individual members can be changed by the board and was increased from €42 to €55 in April this year. Again, that puts the proposed club membership fee in line with the original model, which MI memberships have deviated from in recent years, whereby club membership is 1/3 discounted from individual membership, and that's there to represent the economies and the efficiency a club bring to introducing people and safeguarding them, and you know, just sharing good practice and skills.
Okay, so if anybody wants to speak, we need to just, in order to keep some, let's keep this moving along. It's 2 minutes in accordance per speaker. We will be enforcing that. So if anybody wants to comment on either speak against or comment, I know to some extent this overlaps with probably some of the earlier conversation. Okay. I don't see anybody raising their hand. I think we'll move to the poll. I'm happy to take any questions. I think it's. I think we've been told very clearly by Sport Ireland that because costs have been increasing in recent years. I think Sport Ireland are very clear. They want to see they want to see NGBs funding some of those cost increases themselves. So I think it's very much in line with what we've been advised by Sport Ireland. Okay, I don't see any questions or comments. So I'm going to launch the poll, Julie, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's launched, David.
Thanks.
You should have your results now.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, so the vote is 77% have voted yes, 19% voted no, 4% abstained. So the vote is passed. Thank you.
Okay. The second motion is, I suppose, it's quite technical in nature, and essentially we've been essentially told by Sport Ireland that we need to change to amend our constitution. So it's to amend Mountaineering Ireland's constitution by removing the following line from paragraph 3H of the Memorandum of Association. The anti-doping rules of Mountaineering Ireland are the Sport Ireland or Sport Northern Ireland anti-doping rules as amended from time to time, and replacing it with the anti-doping rules of Mountaineering Ireland are the Irish anti-doping rules as amended from time to time. The explanation is this change has been requested by Sport Ireland to align with national policy. I think we can.
It's just to ensure that the language is right. It is the Irish anti-doping rules. They're shared north and south, which is not the situation that pertained in the past. So we just need to update our constitution accordingly.
Yeah, any amendments to the constitution must be approved by the
general meeting.
Okay. I think we can launch the poll on that, Julie. I think it's.
Okay,
So it's on screen.
96% yes, 1% no, 3% abstained. Thank you again.
Okay, I'm going to pass over to Helen for the next bit for obvious reasons.
Okay, so we're through to the election to the board. So we have, and the three people going forward are being elected as ordinary members. Our board is made up of ordinary members and our president, Rita Connell, who was elected at last year's AGM. And while David is the chair of the board, the board itself elects its chair. So we have three vacancies. We have three nominees. David Pollard, who is nominated by Club Coolin. David was elected 3 years ago in March 21. He's eligible for re-election. And as you might gather from that, the term of office for a board member is 3 years. The second nominee, Martha Burton, is nominated. Martha's an individual member of Mountaineering Ireland, and she's nominated by Darren Nuttall, Antea Lachia, and John Crebin. And Martha is a recent addition to the board. She was co-opted in October 23. And the third nominee, Jacqueline Moore, is a member of the North Coast Integrated Climbers, and she's nominated by Ryan Hanvey, James McLaughlin, and David Buchanan. And Jacqueline was also co-opted in October 2023. We could do those as individual votes, but it would, if it's acceptable to the meeting, if you're happy to do so, we can take a single vote to cover all three. So that's what we would propose to do, unless somebody raises any concerns now about that. And if there are no concerns, Julie, I might ask you to launch the poll for the election of David Pollard, Martha Burton, and Jacqueline Moore as Mountaineering Ireland board members. So that poll is there now, and yet again we get to experience how long 30 seconds is. Okay, we have an outcome there. 94% yes, 3% no, and 3% abstentions. So look, resounding support for David, Martha, and Jacqueline to be elected to the board for 3 years, or as much of that as they will last for. Thank you all very much for that. I am going to hand back over to David as our newly elected board member.
Thank you for that. Thank you for your support. Yeah, so look, I just really want to thank everybody for staying the course with us tonight. I know it was a nice evening out there, and lots of us would have preferred to be out in it. I think it's really important that we have a good, strong, and we had a really strong turnout tonight. Again, as I said at the beginning, we debated ourselves whether, online or in person or hybrid. And we felt the least bad option was fully online. If you think otherwise, we'd be delighted to get your feedback, and we can try and incorporate that into we can take that into consideration for next year. Rita, you were trying to get in there.
Yes, David, thank you. If I could just say a word before the end of the meeting, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank David Pollard especially for tonight and for his year this year as chairing the board of directors. It has been a very busy year, a year of change for Mountaineering Ireland, and the hours and the voluntary time that David has put into the organisation this year has to be commended. I would like to thank you, David. I'd also like to thank all of the board members for giving up their time during the year for their role. It is all voluntary. Also, to all the staff in Mountaineering Ireland, it has been a year of change, a busy year. People have had to act up, take on additional roles, etc. And we, the board, and I'm sure all the members really appreciate that. And we look forward to Liam starting in his new role as the CEO towards the end of June. And we look forward to a bigger and better organisation. Also, as David said, it has been a great attendance at the meeting tonight. I want to thank you all. There's been some healthy debate and discussion, and that's all part of what an AGM is about. I'd like to thank all the clubs, all the officers in clubs and the individual members for spreading the word of Mountaineering Ireland and keeping up the values. And I'd like to remind everybody, Mountaineering Ireland belongs to us all. We are the members, we own it. So it's up to everybody to keep the organisation going. So that's all I have to say. Thank you, David.
Thanks, Rita. That's thank you for that. Okay. If there are no other comments, I think we can close the meeting. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for attending, and I'd like to echo Rita's thanks to my fellow board members, to all of the committee members, and particularly to staff, and I think probably in particular to Helen, who has really kept the ship on afloat in quite difficult circumstances last year. So. That's okay. I remind you the autumn gathering is in Sligo this year, and the bar was set very high last year by the Kenmare Club. So no pressure, Sligo, if you're there. We're looking forward to it.
Yes, and just for people to note, the date for the autumn gathering is the 11th to the 13th of October. We'll be based in the Southern Hotel in the centre of the town, and we will have some further information on the autumn gathering coming in the summer issue of the Irish Mountain Log, and of course through the e-newsletter, which goes out to members monthly. And last thing I would like to mention, actually, as we have so many clubs represented tonight, is that if you or your members are not receiving our e-newsletter, it's a simple process to log into the website and select to choose to receive information from Mountaineering Ireland. And we would certainly encourage you to encourage your members to do so, so that you are kept up to date with events and news within Mountaineering Ireland. And I would like, while I have the floor, to echo my thanks to echo Rita's comments, and my thanks to David Pollard as chairperson. He's been a tremendous support to me during my 2 terms as interim CEO, and also as Dave Ayton is here and has been the chair of FAR in that time as well, to thank David, the rest of the board members, and particularly my colleagues on the Mountaineering Ireland staff team, who work really very, very hard, are hugely committed, and particularly over the last year, while our colleague Ruth Whelan, our Hill Walking Development Officer, has been on maternity leave, there's been some extra load shouldered by team members there, particularly Siobhan, our office administrator. Whelan MacDade has done a tremendous job supporting Hill Walking in Ruth's absence, and also Laura Griffin. And I also want to thank the other members of the team who've supported the meeting tonight, particularly Michael and Julie, who's the newest member of the Mountaineering Ireland team, who just started with us in January. So David, I think we're probably done.
Okay, good night, and
thank you very much. Thank you to the members.
good night, and thank you very much for attending.